to order. We have lots and lots of people here today. Some of you were here last time around, so we'll not have you guys go first if you wish to speak. But other new people who were not here last time, we would love it if you would like to speak. And I see you, Miss Hamilton.
Get her done, huh? Right?
Yep. Please announce who you are.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
it's called to order, but I didn't. We're just going to go. We got a lot.
I didn't know if we needed to approve their minutes.
We probably do. Sarah, you're going to
Oh,
hold for 1
I'm
minute.
Anna, but
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, you seem ready. I was ready. But yeah, we should do that first. All right, we do have the consent agenda. I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, have a second. We've got a second. All in favor?
Might start with the other.
I'm just wondering about.
With the other one? Oh, yes, duh. Thank you very much.
I would just-
Sorry, Tom. I should keep that in.
Are we going to, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay, sorry. But, so we had that in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. All right, we are going to actually start with the Tom and Hannah Crosby conditional use permit. Commissioners, I presume you've all had a chance to read it over and look at it. Let me get there. Yeah, I, just put out my 2 cents, and reading it over, I feel like it's just pretty much a done deal. It's not a,
Please speak up.
We can't hear you.
can't hear it all.
yeah, okay. I'll be louder. So to my mind, this one seems pretty straightforward. It's, from my understanding, you want to just be able to, in the future, be able to use it as an apartment for regular monthly rental,
Correct.
but
Yep.
not necessarily right now, but just have that option in
Our-
the future.
Our goal is that if in the future we, say, hire a really good baker that's willing to come up here and leave everything, that we've got a place they could go for, say, 4, 6, 8 months as a buffer, so they can find a place. And if they couldn't find a place, at least we'd have a place for them.
Right.
And we have no intent of living there. We've got our own house. And apart from that, if we're in a good financial position to do it, then that would also work as full-time employee housing later on down the road. But we do have plans to build employee housing at another location.
Yeah.
So that is
Alright.
that is the goal.
Right.
Just on the off chance that somebody's in the room and wants to make a comment on this one?
Sure. I just have another question. I didn't see it in writing, but I did see an image of a parking space. That is true and actual on your plan is to have a parking space for that apartment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other further comments? Commissioners, do you have any questions for Tom? Go ahead.
So, right now your plan is to use it for overnight rental,
Correct.
and it's a 2-bedroom, and I'm thinking
It's a 3-bedroom.
3 bedrooms, so it's probably more than one vehicle.
It is
if
possible. It
Okay,
is
so-
possible, and we do have space.
So is all this space on the bottom of your plan here, is that all reserved for parking for both the rental and your personal business use parking?
Correct. So we should be able to accommodate 4 parking spaces, which would give 2 for the rental and 2 for ourselves.
Is that something you'd be comfortable adding as a condition to this request, that you would provide 4 off-street parking spots?
I don't think I could say yes to that,
Okay.
just as we've got a lot of mechanical stuff that we're trying to get in line there. We're working with Blue Water to try to share a dumpster, really kind of clean it up back
Might
there.
be tight, so committing to
And-
4 is not, we're not committing to 4.
No, we have committed to 1
Okay.
for the upstairs rental,
Okay.
with the confidence that we can, if needed, say to a potential customer, like, yes, there are 2 parking spaces, or in the future, if it is a family up there, that we, without question,
Make that work.
could make that work, as we would only need 1 for ourselves.
Okay.
Maybe worth clarifying, the use of this property for lodging, short-term rental, doesn't require any special permission and does not require any off-street parking. And the use of it as a bakery, same, doesn't require any special permission, doesn't require any off-street parking. It's only the use as a residential unit
Yeah.
that does require 1 off-street parking space.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep. Any further questions, commissioners? Anton?
No.
No? Okay. Is there anybody here who was here to make comments on this? What? Really? Absolutely. Okay.
My name's Dave Mills, and I live at 196 County Road 44, so not a city resident per se, but own property in Creechville, 800 and 820 Creechville Road. And I really want to applaud the Crosbys for the work that they've put into this and lining things up. It's not an easy task whatsoever in downtown Grand Marais. And I've been really curious just to what's going on. So when I saw this in the packet, I was quite excited. And it's not the primary reason I'm here, of course, but I 100% support their efforts and really applaud them. This town would love a retail bakery. It's a really good fit. Considering all the other uses fit in the ordinances as well, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be approved. But I think it's a really good fit for the town and the community, and will add on all fronts. I really like the aspect of having the short-term rental there to keep the cash flow going, but then if they need that long-term rental, I think that's a huge benefit for both their business and other businesses around the town. So it's just win-win-win-win-win. I appreciate the concern about parking, because that's a concern everyone has, but as things are written, it seems pretty straightforward. So thank you for your time and your work, and thank you, Tom, for going for it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. All right.
Motion to approve Tom and Hannah Crosby conditional use permit.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that moves along.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you, Tom.
Thank you. I'll free up a chair over there.
Great. All right. So now for the big show, we'll try and be orderly and ask everybody to be as succinct as they can. We've gotten a lot of feedback already. And as I was saying earlier, anybody who was here last time, who's spoken to this, maybe let somebody else speak this time. Not that you can't, but just give everybody an opportunity to have a chance to say their piece. And we'll do it popcorn style, so whoever wants to go first, hop on up.
Still do you.
All right, still you, Sarah.
Pardon, sir.
Okay. I'm Anna Hamilton. I am full of opinions, and that's why I'm here. I am sick and tired of talking about housing. We've talked about it since I moved here, which is almost 40 years. Same thing. Let's talk about housing. Let's hire somebody to talk about housing, and then we hire somebody to talk about housing. So I am in complete support of an apartment complex. Just have to say that. I think we need apartments. It's not my neighborhood. I know nobody wants anything in their neighborhood.
Sure.
I appreciate that to some degree. I do appreciate concerns on safety too. I just don't live there and I don't know what those are, so I support that as well. My concern, not even concern, probably my only negative about the location is the Gunflint Trail. I'm a trailer, so, you know, my percentages might not be right, but I'd say 50% of why people come to this county is the Gunflint Trail. So if I can't see it, I'd be okay with it. And it's just because of that corner. You know, here we go, Gunflint Trail, and there's, you know, that's my only objection. Because I don't live in Creechville. It's not my neighborhood. I don't know the safety issues, although I've been listening to them. I'm just here to say that I'm really in support of the HRA and getting this place built. I wish the school, or hope the school, would make that an alternative. I had a purchase agreement on that land at one time. I do know that land. I know the wetlands. They're really no different than the wetlands on the subject property that you're talking about. It just seems like a really nice place to have residential space, is on that school property. It's 38 acres right to the west of the Cornerstone Church. I don't know all the details and whether they're even willing to work with you. I just think it's a really good location. That's all I have to say. I'm in support. We need housing and we need to quit talking about it. We need to get her done. That's all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, anyone?
Adios. Good luck.
Anyone?
Nobody else is going.
Oh, well, here we go.
There we go. Giddy up, Jerry.
Gerry Donek.
Okay.
I recently owned property in Creechville now.
Okay.
I go up and down that Gunflint Trail probably a few hundred times a year with a logging truck. I come down the hill, I gotta worry about stopping. Well, if you get that many extra people pulling out in front of you, because that's just the way generally people do, it's a very large safety issue coming down. You cannot stop a 100,000-pound truck coming down that hill on a dime, not like a car. That's the biggest concern over it. And is that the only piece of property that's available that could be used? I mean, you have the Gunflint Trail there, and it just doesn't seem like it's a very safe spot to do it. And wintertime takes half hour. They plow that hill. Half hour later, I went up the hill this winter, pickup pulls out. I barely got around the corner to get up around the hill, and there's already one logging truck spun out on the hill. So now the more cars you got pulling out, the more chance of it is. You got lumber trucks, gravel trucks all summer long, logging trucks, a lot of heavy equipment. Every city project that comes down, all them trucks all come down the Gunflint. And it's going to be it's going to be an incident. You can't put a stop sign there. You can't do nothing. You'll never get up the hill. So that's my biggest concern about it. And is it the only piece of property that's available to do this project on? I walked up there the other day and I could hear water running. Wasn't in the ditch. It was in the site. And I looked over the bank and there's a nice little creek coming down through there also. But the safety issue, that's a big concern.
Okay.
I mean, you wouldn't want to accidentally pull out, it's slippery, you can't get going, you can't stop a truck. You know, and there's a lot of them that come off the hill, but with the chip trucks that come down, they probably pull, I mean, that's 500-600 loads of chips or more every year come down that hill, just chips alone, let alone all the lumber and gravel trucks. So that's what I got to say is it's a big safety hazard is what it's going to create. By putting a lot of extra traffic in a small congested area that has a lot of blind spots. So, thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jerry.
thanks, Jerry. Next up?
I guess I'll try.
Okay, very good.
I'm kind of new at this. Even though I'm John Scully. My brother Pat lives in Creechville. And like this morning, every 2 weeks, I go up to Creechville to take Terry Quinn down to his chemo sessions. Today, he was pretty sickly, so I know he's not gonna be here, he wanted to be here. He lives right on the corner when you cross the Gunflint.
Okay.
I plow his driveway for the last couple of years with my ATV. Every time you get up there and it's not plowed, it is dangerous trying to cross the Gunflint. Now, how many cars are we talking trying to cross the Gunflint out of this project? Per day, twice a day, probably in and out. That's my big concern. I'm thinking there's a lot of other spots. That spot would have been perfect for the dog park, and the dog park would have been perfect for this project. Then everybody could get out on the south side of the Gunflint. Or what about this, never see a horse in the horse park? And my brother brought one up the other night when he said, well, gee, we've got our mother's estate I'm trying to deal with an attorney down on the other end of town. That's over an acre. That's also another, I've talked to Hamilton a little bit about developing that. There's another option there. That's a good spot. I just can't see that spot. That spot looks very dangerous. I know it. I mean, my nephew years ago came up to go to my brother Pat's, and he slid down out in the Gunflint and got T-boned. And they go, oh, well, we'll take care of that. We'll salt and sand that. But it's a skating rink. I know there's times I couldn't make it up there past what used to be Lee Creech's house, and as I'd go up to my brother's. And I'm thinking, there's no other way out of there. There's no northern exit. There's no, you have to cross the Gunflint. And then hearing, how many times cars are sliding off, they're coming down too fast. All summer long you've got RVs, boats. All winter you got snowmobiles, then you've got the semis. You've got, then you've got the propane haulers. You've got the oil haul. I mean, there's a lot of traffic on that Gunflint. And years ago I did apartment maintenance, and I know how many get up at the same time, and they're all headed out. So you're talking one after another is going to be coming out there. How many cars are going to be in this complex that are going out? If there's 2 people per unit, and you're talking, what, 50 units, 51 units? That could be 100 cars,
Okay.
twice a day. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Next, anyone?
I'll go.
Oh,
Or you go. You go. You go. You go.
all right.
I'm back. I'm Gail Anderson, and I do live on Creechville Road. Just a couple things I want to mention is I'd like to point out that the Cook County Land Use Plan Guide that was established in 2015 has a couple of interesting notes on how we want our community and how our county to be planned property-wise. And there's 3 sentences or important things that I think pertain to this project. Under policies, number 12, review of conditional uses and rezonings must evaluate impacts on but not limited to relationship to land use plan, benefit to the overall community, adjacent use, air and water quality, traffic generation, public safety and health, area aesthetics, and economic impact on the area. Number 13 is redevelopment of already developed lands is generally preferred over the development of underdeveloped land. I'm wondering why the property that used to be Tom Tabota across from the old Harbor Light isn't a consideration right in front of the city garage. Seems to be plenty of property there. It had an entire hotel there at one point, so I think that'd be an awesome spot for it. And I think it would be attractive coming into town and in that area. The next off the planning guide were goals. And number 23 is minimize the adverse impacts of noise and night lighting on adjacent properties and land uses. And if this goes on that corner of Creechville, we know that we are all going to be impacted by that, along with everybody else driving up that road. And I guess the final note I'd want to say is that we put together a petition against the location, not against housing. We know we all need we need the housing, it's a definite, but I just think everybody is just not happy with the location. So if you all want, I made copies. I got 108 signatures
Okay.
without even knocking on doors, and that was just doing it online. So if you care to take it, that's for you, and thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hello.
Linda Jurek with the Cook County Chamber of Commerce and Visit Cook County. I'm going to date myself. I was born here in Grand Marais and spent the first 23 years of my life here. And in that amount of time, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on change. In 1969, our elementary school was condemned, and the entire 5th and 6th grade class had to go to churches for a year. And we all got farmed out into every church in town, much in the name of progress. Couldn't get the new school built in time, had to go to churches. Probably 80% of the kids. Few kids got to go into the high school. I wasn't one of them. The Gunflint Trail was also rerouted because now what we call 5th, the old Gunflint Trail, I remember vividly when my dad was a police officer, logging trucks barreling down into town, many accidents. So again, change in the name of progress and safety. We had to come around that corner, and we extended the Gunflint Trail. In the amount of time I've been back, I was in Duluth for 30 years, and although most of that time I lived outside of town, I worked downtown all the time, and Duluth was often called Little San Francisco, hills. I mean, it was sometimes you had to really plan your route. We don't have the fortunate opportunity to do that. This is a hill, this is the Gunflint Trail. But we can make it safe. We can monitor the speed. I'm listening to what people are saying about snowstorms because I live on Devil's Track Lake and I drive that every day. And there has been some pretty scary trips up and down the trail, just to note. But I think that we need to think about, grocery stores used to be in neighborhoods and they've changed. The Cove that sat on the shore of Lake Superior is now a branch of the Best Western. And so I really want to, we know we need housing, and I really think it's important that we all understand that change is sometimes hard, but we all need to stop and think about where it's going to bring us in the future. Housing has to be a priority right now. And not balancing change with progress is going to be really important. I'm very much in support of the housing project as it is. I certainly am listening to the safety concerns, but I want to just go on the record as we need this project, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
I'm back.
All right.
Ann Sullivan. As I've been reflecting on this project, I've been doing some other work as well, and I happened to come across a document from 2017, Sawtooth Bluffs Site Development. And right in the area that we're talking about today, it's labeled residential. This was the concept in 2017. We've needed housing for 30, 40 years. And this particular piece of property and this particular concept helps us to meet those needs. We have Hamilton Habitat, one house at a time. We need apartments to provide housing for hundreds of unmet needs that we have right now in Cook County. I appreciate the signatures that are on your petition, 108 of them. We have 5,600 people living in Cook County, many that are living in somebody's basement or their spare room. Some people are couch surfing. So with all these unmet needs, and knowing that we have concerns of residents, knowing that we have safety concerns, but we haven't talked to our highway department, I would just suggest we need this and we need it now. We know what the issues are and we will deal with them. We'll make them right, but let's not kick the can down the road any further. Thank you.
Again.
Thanks, Ann.
Hi, I'm Lawrence. I'm Lawrence Doe. I live in Hoveland, and a retired building contractor. And I'm in full support of the project as it's drawn up. I know that there's a lot of issues, not only the neighborhood, the impact of the neighborhood, the impact of the visual, and the safety factors. I think those are all legitimate points. However, I think for me it overrides the need in the county for housing. I mean, the hospital is continuing to roll back its services because they can't get staff. The schools are doubled up because they can't get staff. Other employers in the county can't get staff because new hires can't find housing. It's a critical issue, and it seems to me like the other issues, the negative aspects of the siting of this project can be dealt with. Highway engineers deal with hill country all the time. People that live here drive on icy roads every winter. Accidents happen. Driving down 61 to Duluth is no piece of cake in the wintertime. Now, I understand that the Gunflint is a serious hill coming down there, but I suspect that there are some solutions to the safety issues. I don't know what they are at the moment, but I suspect that there are, because highway engineers have been working with these same problems. Cook County is not unique in having this particular issue. So I think there are solutions that can be developed. There are no solutions for the lack of housing except to build houses. There's no other solution for that. There's no other solutions to take care of the employment problems in this county without housing. There's no solutions for that except to build housing. And the thing that I like about this project is that it concentrates the amount of housing in one project. The local builders and developers are busting their fannies to build as fast as they can, and they're not going to be able to outpace the need for housing in this county. So this development puts 51 units in pretty quick order. The other thing is that if these same units were built out in the county, you'd be looking at somewhere around 250 acres at the county's 5-acre minimum. You'd be looking at 250 acres of land use as opposed to the 20-some acres up the hill here. Time-wise, if we were going to build those same units one at a time, we'd be out years to get 50 houses out. And this project will be done in a couple of years probably. I think there's a lot of pluses, and I think the pluses certainly outweigh the issues. I have a lot of sympathy for people that are concerned about the change in the neighborhood. I don't live in that neighborhood, but I have a lot of concerns. I've worked in neighborhoods in 2 states, probably 5 counties, and multiple municipalities, and sight lines are always an issue. So I understand that. That can't be in the way of developing housing, because there's always going to be sightline issues wherever we site something, wherever we do. And frankly, when you come down that hill, when I look at Lake Superior, my eye is not going to be drawn to some apartment complex on that curve. My sight line is out either on the road or looking at it's an enormous view coming down that hill. In a small project, I mean, this large apartment complex is not going to seriously impact the view along the Gunflint Trail. And once you get over the hill, you're over the hill, and the Gunflint Trail just lays out in front of you with very little impact on it. So I see it as a very positive aspect, and the issues that are raised up, there are solutions to fix it.
All right.
So, thank you for your time. I appreciate your efforts on this.
Thanks, Lawrence. Yep. Okay. Anyone else before we turn it to the commissioners? There we go.
Good evening. I'm Kimber Wralsted, and I'm the CEO for North Shore Health. And so we've been talking about the need for housing, and I can attest to the fact that we have a significant need for housing. I understand that there are concerns. I even agree with some of the concerns. But I truly believe that we have committed individuals that will work diligently to address those concerns. And I've talked to Jason on routine basis about how can we address things, how can we make a difference. And this is our opportunity. And again, as others have said, we cannot kick this can down the road. This is important. We need to move forward. We need to work together to address some of the issues. And I greatly appreciate the fact that we're having this discussion and that we actually have something to talk about. So thank you.
Thanks, Kimber. Anyone else? Here we go.
Joyce Haskri. I'm just with regard to Kimber, and I understand we need housing. There's just a couple questions that I have. It's a very high cost of living here in Grand Marais. And we all know that we've got lack of healthcare workers here. We really do. And it's all over the United States. Will we fill these 51 units up? We have the oldest population in the state of Minnesota. How many people are gonna stay here if we don't have a hospital? I mean, we're looking at something like that down the road. Are we gonna have EMT services? Those are things I think we need to think about. I know we need housing, but maybe not on this large of a scale. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thanks, Joyce. That was good unison there, guys.
Dolby.
Yes. Wow. All right. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right. And wait. There she comes. I was wondering. I thought, could it possibly happen? There. Goodness.
Thanks. Mary Somnis, and speaking with my HRA board hat on.
Okay.
Of course, I am in favor of this project, and I hope that you look favorably upon the request for the CUP. I don't know these developers well, but I've already seen them take a very large step in being good members of this community. When we were here for the change of zoning or
Yeah.
the transfer of the land, there were a lot of concern expressed about the three-story building that was proposed at that time. And when Jason went back and shared those concerns with the developers, they immediately went back to the drawing board and changed their plan to a two-story building because they listened to the people.
Two.
I'm sorry?
They're adding two. They're going for two buildings now.
Well, the original building of 50 apartments was going to be 3 stories, and now it's 2 stories to try to protect the view shed, the hillside. So I just found that to be a good signal from them that they care about the community. And again, I can't promise they're going to continue to be that magnanimous in their efforts to work with us, but it was a good sign for me, and I'll just let it go at that.
All right.
I won't read my 2 pages of notes.
Well, thank you for that.
Thanks, Mary.
Small papers. Yeah, they are. All right. Anybody else? Sir.
Okay. I'm Doug Sanders. I tell people I'm the only actuary in Cook County. I'm retired. And my wife and I composed a letter, but she's not able to be here. And I'll give the points of the letter. I don't know if it was going to be read, but we submitted a letter to the commission. I've known Jason for years. I'm from Duluth, the city of Duluth. And I know his wife, Kristen. Jason was a city employee of Duluth. He had countless housing projects. His title was, or his responsibility was housing in Duluth, affordable housing in Duluth. He worked on apartment buildings, and he worked with contractors. He knows contractors that can get the job done, and that's what he's able to bring to Cook County. Builders, contractors. He's able to bring the money funds into the county by combining, like with the apartment, 51 units, 40 would be commercial, regular rental rates. 11 would be affordable. That's how Jason was able to get the funds and the builders in here. Now we have the essence of the letter that we submitted was that we have a short building season. Look how the MnDOT people, when they were working on our highways up here, you never saw an idle moment with the MnDOT people and their contractors. They just were busy knowing it was a short season. And I think they did a pretty good job here. And I know Mary and I have been here about 20 years. Got to know a lot of people and volunteers running fire departments throughout the county, all volunteers. Volunteers like right here, our volunteer city council are also involved with nonprofits like the library. And our volunteers are, some are challenged with the time, and I think about the essence of our letter too is with the short growing season and trying to get meetings going and people together is somewhat of a challenge because some of our volunteers are challenged. And that the point in the letter too that Jason is bringing contractors, builders that we should keep busy during our short season. We don't keep them busy. They're in demand. These builders and contractors Jason's bringing in would be sought out by others if we don't keep them busy. And of course, Mary and I endorsed the use of permit for the location. It's a risk. It's a risk, but it's a risk worth taking. And we have leaders up here now that are taking a risk, and we all need to take that risk for the housing. Chamber of Commerce used to be 160 members, and they're down to 135, and when they're surveyed as to the biggest need in the county, it's housing. Of course, we all know that. And now, I don't think you'd have to read our letter. It's a lot shorter than what I said.
Oh,
It's
we've got it. It'll be
six
in there.
sentences, yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
You bet. All right.
My name is Patty Lane. I live at 853 Critchville. My husband and I bought the lot a few years ago and have now brought a home into that area. Really like the location, close to the city, but a great view as well. Certainly understand the concerns about public safety. Not sure if there's been any evaluation of like the actual number of cars kind of in that area and how that increases during certain times of the year. And I would say I'm in favor of the housing project, but certainly do have some concerns about public safety and crossing that area. I'm not sure if there's going to be any families in these units, if that would result in children perhaps crossing the Gunflint to go to school. I know kind of farther down, there's a little trail that some of the other kids go through. So just wondering about that. Wondering if there might be some sort of, I'm not sure if it would be a condition for approval of the project that there would be assurances or participation opportunities for people in the neighborhood. Maybe a reduction in speed along those areas. You know, those are some questions, comments for law enforcement as well. If there would be increased patrol, perhaps, in that area as well. Not sure if those are options or if those are things to write into the approval or, you know, when the project becomes active and people start living there, if that's a time also to start looking at the increase in traffic, if that's something to perhaps write into the proposal. I'm not sure about that, so
Okay.
just wanted to mention that.
Great,
Great,
thanks,
thank you.
Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
All right. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Mills.
No, I'm taking this spot. Hi again, my name is David Mills. I live at 196 County Road 44, own property at 800 Creechville Road and 820 Creechville Road, and want to express my support for the project at large. Do have concerns, much like the neighbors in Creechville do, about safety and aesthetics. My strategy on the situation, though, would be really, because of how badly we need housing, is to really reach out to the developers and try to work with them rather than just say, nope, done, not a good idea. I think it's more of, we want something, let's work with you, and frankly, we need more than what the current proposal is. And so if this is a good fit, if this relationship works, I'm hopeful for the future. We got to start somewhere when we're talking these larger numbers. And we don't have a whole lot of experience with that in Cook County. So this is a little uncharted territory, and luckily we have Jason Hale as our HRA director to help us navigate all that, and I think he's doing a fine job looking at all of our resources throughout the county. I once sent Anton a video of a joint meeting between the EDA, City Council, and the County Board of Commissioners from 2016, going over this very issue. And it was interesting to reflect on that and how long it's been since then. And yes, we have made progress, but even then we are talking large number of units. But it's just been incremental steps since then. We started with the west side of town, then there was the Lutzen projects, and then of course there's private developers helping out in the whole effort as well. So we're making strides, and I think this really is the next step. The concerns I'm hearing about safety, I raised 2 kids in that corner house at 800 Creechville Road, both from age 0 to, I don't know, 10 or something like that. Who's counting? And safety was always on our mind. We were very diligent. We as I shared at a previous meeting, we had pets die on the road, and that's for real. There's high speeds coming down the hill, there's high speeds coming up the hill, and really we need to develop a strategy to address that, whether there's an apartment complex there or not. And as I stated previously, perhaps this kind of development will really help us really push that kind of safety, development and just looking for solutions. It's a tight spot, won't be easy, but I believe that we can do that. We also involved Highway Engineer Robbie Haas there about traffic counts. He didn't have any significant concerns that I'm aware of, but that's from an engineering standpoint, and we all know that can not always be by the book too. So really appreciate the time that you're taking to listen to all these concerns. I know that not all of them can be addressed in this permit, but as I said, I think we can address them, especially if we have a better working relationship with the developers that are here sticking their necks out. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Not speaking.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Wow.
Come on, James.
I guess we're done. Heard enough. Okay. Anybody else before we turn it over to the commissioners? Alrighty, commissioners. You've heard many things. You've gotten lots of emails. What are some of your thoughts? Anybody have a strong feeling at this point? Anton?
Oh, you can start on that side. I showed you
Okay.
last time.
Very good.
I have a question for Anton.
I'll summarize
Oh,
for
you
everybody.
wanna
How
have
about that? Well, you guys can start, and I'll summarize. Just kidding. Go ahead.
I don't.
He's gonna be the closer, I
I
guess.
think you do that every time. No, but I actually have a question for Anton and our administrator, because this board, I'm trying to think how long ago it was, you came before us and got a plat developed with a new city street coming down on the Gunflint Trail. Where is that in the process?
Well, that actually, that is existing where that was on that project. That's 3rd Avenue West, so that was already an existing
And
street.
it connects up there and into Creechville?
Yep.
So there
Up
is
to ninth.
another access down onto the Gunflint Trail.
Yeah, doesn't that
from
come out of
Creechville.
Broadway?
But there's no access from 5th Avenue West around by Dave's old place on 4th Avenue West. There is kind of a workaround there, but it's not set up right now
It's not set up
for
yet.
coming down 4th.
I was just curious where that's
I mean, and then you
at.
could continue down 9th onto the road that I'm putting in and deeding to the city.
Right, because it
But
is going to
that
be a
would be-
city street.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the options down the
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
What might be available. Okay, so thank you for clearing that one up for me.
Yeah, I think that people would not likely use that workaround to go up Fifth Avenue and down the curvy road and then over on the gravel 9th and shoot down Anton's curvy road. I mean, it would really have to be a tricky intersection for people to go through those, but it's open, potentially. But will he be done before?
Yeah, probably not, but that's what I want, that's why I was asking, how close are you to being done?
Go ahead, Jerry.
I got a question here. You worried about using these streets? The Creechville Road is one of the worst streets in the county.
I agree.
You plow, it gets plowed and the blacktop flies up. The city can't even maintain that street,
Yeah.
let alone anything else.
So, I mean, I guess I know that I have land up on 9th, down past Gary, like basically we're North Broadway and above Hamilton. Where'd she go? Anyway, she gone. Anyway, and that, I know that section 9th Street, I plow it myself because it doesn't get plowed until later in the day because it's not a high priority. Same with 4th, up from like the horse park past Dave's place. I don't go over to 5th because I don't.
Oh, no, that's,
you know what I mean?
they're terrible when it comes to plowing that. That's an
It's an
afternoon.
afternoon.
We've learned to plow our own.
Right, yeah, and so that would be, but, so, that being said, right, there probably is because of, right, that's the way it's been up there forever, and
Well,
there's,
where I live, the county plows, they all go out one side and then they come back later in the day and plow it.
Plow
And
the
then
other
it's been
side.
Drove on by 8 buses out, 8 buses in,
Right.
8 bus drivers in, 8 bus drivers out, and you can skate on it.
sure,
And then you come down to the stop sign and slide out
slide
on the
right
Fifth.
through, yeah,
It's the same problem with Creechfield Road.
yeah,
By the time it's drove on, it's too late.
yeah.
All right.
I drive that, I know exactly what everybody's talking about, that is talking about that. I've tried to bring,
Studded tires, we'd be okay.
now
There
we're
we
talking.
go. All right. What they do in Norway.
Didn't mean to jump in front of you there. I just wanted to know where we're at there. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right,
You
Brandon.
could drive it.
And, you know, we do have a resource here in the form of Jason Hale, if you had any questions for him, if you would like to ask.
Well, I am a little concerned. Is there a representative from the company here today?
Yeah, right here.
Would you
Just invite him.
I think
Yeah,
all three
well,
of
you
you
guys
should
sit
come
there,
around.
yeah.
Would you mind?
Why don't you guys come around?
I think it'd be, it's just a little creepy, you're just looking over his shoulder.
We'd like to keep our eyes on
I'm
you.
wondering when you're gonna call it.
Well, you know, I didn't want to, just wait till everybody was ready.
Well, if you don't mind, quick, I'll let these two gentlemen introduce themselves.
Right.
And then maybe we can, tackle any questions commissioners have about this and start with yours, but, go ahead, Ryan.
Ryan Nelson, one of the owners of P&R Companies.
Dante Tomasoni, I'm our Chief Operating Officer.
Got it. Great.
All right. Currently, there are no plans to use any of these apartments as short-term rentals. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Could I actually speak to that a little more fully?
By all means.
There are no plans, and in fact, it's prohibited for the agreement that the HRA has. So it's not only not planned, it's not allowed.
Okay.
And it's R1.
Correct. So
Correct.
even if the HRA said, go to town, we don't have the jurisdiction to allow that. That would be a city decision to make.
Right. Okay. That was the main concern. I know the incident with the Duluth apartments, has been circulating around up here, and so people were concerned that, once, in a couple years, once it's all built, then suddenly, the housing that we thought we were getting, we aren't, and it just happens to be more short-term rentals that I suppose the market could handle, but we don't really need, So if that's not an issue, The only other question I would have is with the materials being used, I'm curious where the wood and such for the project is coming from.
I couldn't really answer that right now, but we do try to source everything we can as close to the project as we can.
Mhm.
We're about being able to come to the community, add to the community, and be part of the community when we're done. So it is, it's part of our job to provide the best addition to the community as possible, and I think purchasing local things would be part of that.
Excellent. No, logging's been a big part of the community for a long time. I myself work at Hedstrom's. We experienced the labor shortage ourselves pretty heavily, so I'm excited to know that people are trying to add housing because we certainly need it up there as well. And I would just hope that as the project moves forward, that you're utilizing as many local resources as possible. You hopefully would not only cut down your own costs, but continue to provide business for the local area. Other than that, does anyone have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Just to be transparent, because you guys see semis coming in with panels of walls on their trucks when they're coming into town. That probably will be the case unless we have somewhere around here that we could source out the panelization to, but we are always looking for ways to make the projects work, and it's pretty hard to actually hand frame a building nowadays, so I'd say the loose lumber packages would definitely be something that we could try to source out to the local vendors.
Perfect.
But, the panelization and the trusses and things like that will probably get shipped in.
My turn?
Yeah.
Sure, or whoever, whatever.
So,
You or whoever.
do you want to go first, or you? Go ahead.
Well, I
We
mean,
probably have the same
I'm gonna have a
questions.
lot, could probably be more, and you guys will probably bring some up that I'll oh, yeah, what about that? Thank you guys for coming up here, and thank you, Jason, for putting a lot of work toward this, right? And so, I want to preface that I'm grateful that you guys want to work in our community and that you want to help us solve the housing issue, right? Because we've had lots of people staring at it for a very, very long time. And so it feels like we're maybe moving in a closer direction. And so I'm grateful that you guys are here and want to do that. In saying that, I think that my job is in this capacity is to kind of ask some tougher questions, and some of them, maybe you know them and maybe you don't, and maybe they're not thought up. And but what we're asking us to do is the biggest thing that any of us have been involved with to date, right, that I can recall. And so while you guys are skilled in this and you know that how to navigate these processes, I don't, right? And so I have to make up for that with asking lots of potentially stupid questions.
Ask away.
Okay. So you heard a number of concerns about the traffic and about some of that issue and pedestrian safety possibility. Have there been any internal dialogues about how we deal with that? How do we address that? I don't live in that area, and I don't visit the area all that frequently, and I don't particularly use the Gunflint Trail all that often, so I have to take their word for it that it's dangerous. So what are we going to do about that?
Well, I mean, every single development that we do, the traffic is always a discussion. It's always something that the community brings forward. We understand the reason for that. I mean, we want our residents to be safe. We want the community, everybody within the community to be safe. The last thing we would want to do is see something tragic happen there, know that we created that project, and ultimately it wouldn't have happened if we didn't do that. But it is also, our job to go into communities and find the best way to add value. And by doing that, we rely on resources of people like Jason that, say, this is the community, this is what we need here. This is a project that I think, this is where I think we could build a project that's viable within the city that, fits the zoning and, expectations of, we need a decent sized development in order to make it work, to come up here and do it. But we have drove around the area. We feel comfortable with it. It's a huge investment from our company to come up here and do that. And I can say that we haven't regretted a development as of today, or regretted a decision of how the traffic flow works in and out of our properties. And I feel comfortable with where this one's going to be today.
Okay.
Well, if I could say one more thing about
course.
that, Commissioner. So, of course, this is going to be done in concert with the highway engineer. And I've talked with the county highway engineer about this. And one of the advantages to, right now, you can't see much going around that corner, of course, because of the wooded lot. But the development will actually open up some sight lines, so you'll be able to see that more readily when you're coming around the corner. It's kind of one of the byproducts of the development. It's not the intent, but that's just what will happen. The other thing is there are mechanisms you can put in place. There are things, signage, there's flashing lights of like caution, hey, you're coming around a blind intersection, or there are things we can do. The question as to whether or not they're necessary is really a conversation with the county highway engineer, and then also looking at what traffic counts will ultimately be. Most of these units are smaller units, less than 2 bedrooms, so there's not going to be quite the density that there would be in obviously a 2-3+ bedroom apartment complex. So, having said all that, very aware of it, and as Ryan just said, like, there's definitely disincentive to not do as safely as possible. Like, nobody wants to see anything happen there. But as other people have said too, and I think as Linda had said about the whole North Shore, basically, there's a hill everywhere you go unless you're going this way. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that it's as safe as we can according to the guidance we get, and honestly, some of it comes down with the county engineer, and the county says they will allow in the right of way because I believe that's a county maintained road. So it's going to be under their jurisdiction, but we're already talking about what those mechanisms could be.
Okay.
So it's an open conversation.
Okay. Just firing off more than my list. So seems like we cleared up, maybe Brandon did the short-term rental conversation, right? That's not part of this project, nor will it be part of the project. Can you give me some ideas on the building breakdown? Or maybe let's back up. What are the overall objectives and goals for, for this conversation today? Like, there are some things that I feel might be missing from an information perspective, right? Like when we look at conditional uses and we look at something this size, we would normally be looking at issues of water management and property, and has it been delineated, and what's the status on that? And, so we would have information about where buildings are going to be located based on that information. And so I don't see any of that stuff. And so how do we make a good quality informed decision without it?
I'll take a swing and then maybe I can turn over to you quick. The first thing is we don't have a wetland delineation because the snow just melted. That's going to be done in a couple weeks. I think they're going to be going out as soon as vegetation sprouts that they need to discern where wetlands are, what type they are, etc. The permit before you is essentially to allow in that area a multifamily structure that's explained. And you do have a site plan in your packet, so it shows the location of that building. That's based on the knowledge that we have today. There were boring samples taken, so they know where bedrock is, what kind of soil conditions they're working with. All of that's subject to the county. So one thing that I think is important to make clear, this permit doesn't say like, okay, go ahead and build it, like no other thing is necessary. The development still has to go through the normal land use permit process. It still has to go through the county stormwater process, the county wetland process. Like all of that is still applicable to the development. This is to allow a use in this zone district that requires a special permit. That's what this permit process is about. So I just want to make it like the normal things. Like if this was zoned by right, like we wouldn't be here. There would be no conversation. They would just be building it, and they would go through the normal processes. So this is just to ascertain, hey, do we think this location can handle this? This is the intent of the city giving it to the HRA. Does this make sense? All of those other things have yet to be done, and there's no reason that any developer would go and design all of those things if they didn't know they could actually build the thing. Like, they're not gonna keep spending time and money. Like, this is the answer of like, yes, actually you can build a multifamily project there. It might change. This happens with every project I've ever worked on. You guys could correct me if you've had a better experience, but every time, the enemy contacts, the plan changed, right? So you get on site, you dig a little more, you have to move things around. So this will still have to get finalized and tweaked at the city level with a land use permit, adhering to setbacks, adhering to wetland, et cetera. So I just think that's really important. This isn't the end all be all. This is based on what we know today. Can we build this thing? Okay, now we dig in the weeds.
Can you break the building down for me, as far as, are they one bedroom, are they studios, are they two bedrooms, the target demographic, what are you striving for, who's renting from you?
Anybody who needs a place, essentially. So it's going to be a combination of studios, ones, and then we call it a 1+ alcove. And our 1+ alcove is kind of it's a small 2-bedroom, essentially. You can fit an office in there, maybe you can fit another bed in there. Helps save space for the site, and ideally, talking with Jason, it sounds like the demographics are across the board. Historically, in our buildings, so we have about 700 units in the Twin Ports, and most of our buildings so we build them really quiet, really energy efficient, lots of insulation. We focus on our energy conservation, and it actually kind of lends to a nice quality of life for our tenants. And because of that, our demographics are usually half young professionals, half 55 and over, actually. For this community in particular, we're hoping that there's a contingent of people that maybe have gotten an age that now taking care of a home is difficult. The snow removal, redoing your siding, whatever comes with home ownership, and they hopefully can sell their home and move into something that's nice in this community. There's obviously a little bit of a tourism contingent that is taking housing away from the people who live in this community. We hope we can grab some of that as well. And from there on, it's a little bit riskier on the sense that there's 1,300 people in this town, but Jason has assured us that the need is here, the community needs it, and we hope we can provide that kind of need for the growth of this community.
Mm-hmm. What percentage, what do you get, market rate, and then you've got, is it rent cap, or what, describe that for me?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if Doug or whoever said it, but it's 13 of the units, so 25% of them are going to be rent restricted at 80% AMI, which is 80% of the area median income. So 100%, obviously, is the median income. So this is the affordable housing jargon that kind of gets people confused. But 100% AMI is like right where the median household, what they make in the county. So it's going to be 20% less than that is going to be the rent cap, so it can't be more. And Minnesota Housing publishes that number every year, and that's what it's based on, and that's what the development agreement stipulates. We have to pull from that third party who aggregates data for Cook County and then publishes what the rents can be. The rest is market rate, and as some of us have talked before, no one really knows what that is in Marais, like for a project like this, because it hasn't been done. So what we're trying to do is say, like, we know that 13 of these units are going to be more affordable, and then the risk is on these guys. They're hoping to get rents that make the project worthwhile for them, but they don't know for sure. They don't know until they build it and they start putting the for lease sign up. So that's going to be subject to what the market wants to pay for the apartments.
And how long is that, is it held at those units?
The rent restrictions are for 15 years as of the day of occupancy. So once it's done and they can live in it, then it's 15 years starting then.
Okay, and then it goes to 100% market rate?
Yep. I mean, they could keep it there, I'd be fine with that, but I suspect they won't.
Who's managing the property? Who's going to be doing the daily?
So we manage all of our units right now. Not only do we construct about 85% of each project ourselves, we have our own contracting group, our own plumbing and heating and HVAC systems. We construct them. We do cradle to grave with almost all of our buildings. So our hope is that we can continue to manage as well. We have some really strong community values in our company. Our head of management, Megan, she's one of the brightest young professionals in the state, and she knows the name of almost every single tenant that we've had, she prefers, she really likes everybody over 60. She says she likes the old people. So they probably get more taps on the butt from Megan than they should. But we actually value that community quite a bit. So we're hoping to do that and bring those community values to our tenants. We really do things that are important to us that some management companies that they don't always do, but I'm not saying there aren't any bad ones up here or in that area. But it's really important to us that we care for our tenants. When you're moving out, we look for flexibility. If you're moving in, we try and make things work. If there's something somebody needs help with, that stuff is really important to us. So that's our first priority. So we're hoping to hire locally someone to manage the building and that can communicate with our staff in Duluth, and we'll be up here checking on the building as much as we can. I mean, at least in the summer, it's one of the greatest drives you can do, so it's not going to be punishment for people to come up here. And so if that doesn't work, we're looking to hire locally. Like Odyssey they have a good group together. They're very reputable. I think they have some of the same values we do too, but primarily we'll try and do it ourselves.
Go ahead. I've got more, but go ahead.
No, you're checking off my list.
Yeah, I'm checking up my list too, so that's why I'm like, okay, got that one.
Sure I was.
Right there.
No, really. So, do you have anything, Stace?
Well, actually, I do.
Great.
So, I'm wondering, this is a concept, and you're going to do the wetlands and say, oh, this doesn't work. I really like the looks of what you put together in this packet.
Thank you.
I think it fits the character of the area. What I'm wondering is, okay, now we get down to construction and oops, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, and all of a sudden we get left with a block building. So I'm like hearing about your connection to the community and your commitment to making this project work, but guess what? That's what I'm afraid of, that we're going to cut corners because something, whoops, there's bedrock there. Do you know that? So then I go back to, for a lot of the projects that we have discussed here at this table before, we're very concerned about lighting. So have you thought about lighting in the area? And we certainly want safety in this parking lot you've described, but how would you address the lighting issues for the neighborhood? And we are a dark sky county.
So first of all, valid concerns. I mean, absolutely valid concerns. Of our 700 unit portfolio, we are yet to not build anything that isn't in line with our markers. Do pivots happen? Yeah, they do. But we've always managed to stay within a certain percentage. I mean, can I promise you that stone's not gonna, triple in value and cost by the time we build this? More than likely not. It's a 10-month, but we're gonna do our best to do this. And so far, our reputation has been 100% commitment on that so far. So we want something that fits the community. We want you to be proud of it when we're done, and we're gonna do everything we can. That is one of our values in this community. And, when it's done, we're hoping to come back to the council and everybody go, that was a good idea. Let's do phase 2. And so that's our goal. And we're going to do everything in our power to do it. And so can I promise you that there's going to be 0% chance of a pivot for whatever reason that happens in the market or location? We do know there's rock. We did the soil samples. So we are prepared. Yes. And we've done it before, actually. We do have experience working with ledge rock on one of our Hermitage properties. And so I forget, what was the second?
Lighting.
Lighting is a big safety thing. So we light as we can to make sure that people's vehicles and that they're safe walking through the parking lot. That said, we add no more lighting than is necessary to keep safety. It is important that we do not disturb our neighbors and that we are good neighbors. And so we make sure they're pointing down. We make sure they're pointing in an area that doesn't have anything. If there's a lighting issue with the community, we are here to talk about it, and we are here to do whatever we think we can to balance that safety and make sure that we're not keeping up babies at night. And so we do have a history of doing that. We have some projects in urban areas, but also some projects in residential areas. And once the buildings have been constructed, we're yet to have a complaint about lighting.
I have one more question about clearing. I get you gotta clear to put up a building. Do you I don't know. Is there any way to save some of the more mature trees on the site?
Well, first,
Have you looked at that?
We love landscaping, and I mean, we can do everything we can to keep up the mature trees. I mean, if it's, I mean, it adds to the value. It adds to the value for the tenants. It adds to the value for the building. You know, as I've stated, like environment and energy efficiency are actually two tenant values of our company, and so we're going to do what we can. I mean, obviously, if there's a big tree right in the middle of the footprint, that's going to be hard to do.
Right.
But we want that nature feel to surround the building, and that's, you can see kind of with our design, that was part of it and incorporated into it as well. So yeah, we hope to keep as many mature trees as we can.
I think that's important because there's nothing more ugly than seeing everything cut down and then they plant these spindly little trees that in 20 years are gonna look okay. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the
Our
fact
kids will
that
like
you at
them.
least try.
Well, the only thing I'd like to add to that is, you know what, this development will take a lot of the trees out. We have a grading plan that we need to follow in order to be compliant with our stormwater management program.
That's what I figured.
So, you know, all of the stormwater that's coming off of this site is gonna get filtrated before it goes into the, you know, wherever it would go into your guys' receptors, but, you know, we will build back at the best that we can from what we take down, and we will try to fit in the best we can within the neighborhood, within a reasonable amount of time, so it'd be our goal to get trees that would grow, trees that are mature enough to actually look like something, and take care of them until they can take care of themselves, so.
Gotcha. Great. All right. I'm good. Anton?
Question on, so the, like, occupancy, so if you rent, I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought about it until one of your maybe answers to your questions was, what stops any of your plan from potentially being used as their North Shore cabin instead of finding, you know, putting, right, workforce housing, right? We know there's gonna be a mix. I think it actually makes a more dynamic neighborhood if you have mixes of older and younger people, you know, I know that from living in town, it's a benefit. But is there any control that you can do that somebody couldn't, if they can swing a whatever rent, if it's $2,000 a month or whatever, like, oh yeah, we got an apartment in Grand Marais, which helps you guys, right? I mean, I understand you can rent one at full market rate, but that might be only occupied for whatever, you know, right? It's not necessarily somebody living there, it's used as a in-town cabin, it's their North Shore getaway. And I don't know how you control that. I guess it's just a question that I had in the way you were talking about. I think of this and like I think that I've been working on the housing stuff up here since 2014, I think, 15, whatever, 14, I think. And it's a long time. That's almost 10 years. And so and always the drive, like we got away from the term affordable housing because that's such a hot button, like what is affordable, right? And so it turned to workforce was the language that we tried to use. And there was certainly restrictions that were put in place with the project that the EDA did with One Roof Housing, mostly tied to AMI and income, which I think helped limit really that who was able to do those, and I think that's been a success. Again, that was, what, a dozen houses? It wasn't, we knew that wasn't gonna solve the problem, but it helps. So it's just a question I guess I'd have for you, like, is there a way that can be, we want it to be successful, but I don't want it to be successful at the point of, like, folks that have that ability to drop the rent to be able to have a place, to, I mean, because then that's, you know, right, in theory, that's not doing what this is supposed to be doing, right? In some ways, maybe you could look at it the other side, like, well, now they're not buying a house in town that maybe a family could buy, right? So another piece of property remains available. But I don't know, it's just a question. I don't know if there's an answer, or if you've thought about that. Probably, Jason, you have, but it's just, yeah, that's my first question. How do we make it not vacation, right? Not vacation, not short-term, but same occupants, right? Paying monthly rent, signing a year-long lease, and that's their, hey, we got a place up north, we don't have to mow the lawn, we don't have to shovel the walks, we can pull in and we know the heat's on and everything's working just fine. How do you limit that?
So there's a big qualifier here, and it's how do you do it legally?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So I asked that specific question to HRA attorney, because working on a few different projects throughout the county, and that question always comes up, like a project I'm talking working on, like, well, how do we guarantee that nobody uses this as a second home? Well, you can't.
Yeah.
There's fair housing law, and you can't actually restrict somebody who has the means from renting or from buying a house. It's just not legal. And it's, some would say unfortunately, because this is a problem, and there's conversations about how to, at the state level, how to think about that, because this is becoming a problem in desirable communities everywhere. Like, hey, people who have the means can just go and get an urban cabin, they call it a lot, or like you said, hey, we don't want to deal with the maintenance, let's just go rent a place up there, and it's not a big deal. If we don't go out there for the month, I don't care, I have the money.
Right.
That's not the target audience here, right? But the things we can restrict are short-term rentals. That weeds out a whole cadre of, or a whole population of users that we're not trying to, support with this housing project. And that, by the way, means 30 days or less. So people can't rent it for, that's the definition of, especially like ordinances, like 30 days or less is short-term rental. So there's nothing we can do to say, okay, you have to prove you're going to be a resident year-round. There's nothing, so with other projects, like you're talking about the one roof, the Four Directions, or the Nordic Star, sorry, there are income qualifications you can make, but it's, that, like to your point, when you're buying, naturally weeds out, like somebody who income qualifies to buy an 85 or 115% AMI house doesn't have a second home, right? That wouldn't really make any sense. So we can't do anything that way. Marketing, of course, is part of it, trying to get long-term tenants. But to your earlier point, the hope here is this is a little bit of a pressure release valve on the market. And yes, will there be people who have the means who decide, hey, I think I'd like a place in that apartment? Probably. At the same time, at least they're not buying that house that the school teacher and the family wanted to buy down the street. So there's a series of trade-offs. We can't control who buys or rents. We can control the utilization, which is the short-term commercial versus residential. But as far as a legal mechanism, we have to be pretty careful.
Kind of to that point, in a sense, I mean, I have also thought, one of the questions maybe to you, Jason, and I don't know if it's just because this was one of the first ones that was identified as far as sites, because that's been one of the big things that have been talked about, right? I mean, there is, the Tom Tabota site gets brought up, right? That is, utilities are there, right? I'm not quite sure space-wise, it's obviously not 20 acres, but it's not. Yeah.
Which is is that the one in front of the garage?
Yeah. So it's not as big, right? So it would be something different than this, which might be hard to draw somebody out of, right? A contractor outside of the area to come up and do, which I understand from my time on the city council, trying to get City Hall redone. There's a bar that has to be met in order to have interest. I understand that. The whole point I'd say to that is that that's C1, right? Tom Tabota. So in the Tom Tabota property, not C1, yeah. Well, whatever, what's the ordinance?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Zoning, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh,
so my
sure.
point would be is if that property was to be where something like this were to happen, that is Wild West. I mean, you can nightly rental it, you can run it as a hotel, you can do, so there would be no limitations, which there are limitations because this is happening in the R1 zone. So that's just so people know, that's a good, I think it's a valid point to bring up, that there are other zones and maybe potential properties where this could be better. Well, I don't know better, but it would have ramifications that go along with that, where it would not be primarily used as residential for folks that are trying to stay here. Do we get to see the developers agreement?
Sure.
Just a question. Again, I've only been on this board for a little while, but having been in front of the board and been in front of the city council trying to do work, I understand what I'm like what is, you know, kind of expected in the process, and that, is this not, I know there's different names, but is this more in like the lines of like the preliminary plat? Like if we're allowing them to do this, they can move through with the final planning to be able to, so we can see a final result and a final page?
We should spend some more time on that question before the night is over, because I think there's a lot of different ideas about it right now.
Does that make, right, I mean, because you do a preliminary plat to see is this feasible, are we cool with this happening at this point, and then you spend the money, you do the development, you do the engineering work, you see the stormwater plan, and it comes back in front of everybody to be like, hey, we met with all the agencies with, you know, doing your stormwater management plans and all that stuff. And we're not engineers, but to know that those all have been crossed, and that's the thing now because of the HRA, I didn't understand where that stops. Like if it's truly just zoning and we're saying, or if we have any, you know, we're not gonna say, you know, I'm assuming we're not gonna say, I don't think this is the right stormwater plan because we're not engineers. But to just know that it's been done, right? We could say it, and you don't have to listen, but, okay, so that, yeah, if there's something more that needs to be talked about
right now?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
So, yeah, some of the conversation may lead you to believe that it won't come back to you again after this, and that's an option for you to consider. If you're comfortable with where they're at and what they're saying, you can pass this without any conditions, and they can come back and get a land use permit administratively, and we'll have to figure out, did they meet the intent of this conditional use permit and all of our other zoning requirements. You can also ask for more information if you want. That's something that you've done on a number, including some recent development ideas, so you know what that's like. Or you can set some conditions that are somewhere in between, where you say, we're not engineers, we don't know whether this is a good stormwater plan, but we sure want to make sure you have one before you get a land use permit. So that's a condition we're going to add. And I think you can think about that sort of model for any of the places where you have questions right now, where they haven't done enough work for you to know for sure how it's going to go, because they're waiting to know if you're interested.
Yep.
So.
And if I could just quick piggyback on that from Mr. Roth's perspective, just to give you an idea of kind of lay of the land or how the order works. So obviously, as Mike was saying, they don't have a stormwater plan dialed in. They have a show it on the site plan where they're planning on putting the pond, but of course that comes down to soils and then all the right wetland delineation, all that stuff. So the development agreement is actually between the developer and the HRA, which really deals with the financing of the project and our contribution to that project and what they're delivering in exchange for our assistance. That's what the development agreement does. So you can see it for sure, and you can go to the HRA board meeting and talk about it if you want to, but that's out of the purview of the cities, because the arrangements between the HRA and the city, or excuse me, the HRA and the developer. Then, as Mike was saying, all the other things, like we want to make sure there's a stormwater plan, there's a SWIP, all of his other, engineering type things. Presumably that's, you have LHB and other contractors that the city uses to review those things, just like these other developments that you've seen lately. They review those things, just like Vesta and Chain is being worked on. And then they have to sign off, like, yep, that's sufficient for what we're trying to do or what the city requires for utility connection or stormwater management or whatever. I'm not an engineer either, I'm not gonna pretend to be. I know that water runs downhill, and that's about as much as I need to know. But I just say that, like I said before, all of those normal mechanisms that are being required to be followed aren't exempted here. It's the same deal where they have to get those permissions and those approvals. I'm not as familiar with the City of Grand Marais process and how they handle that, so I would defer to Mike on whether or not that they review all of those plans or have LHB review all the stormwater engineering plans. My presumption is that a permit wouldn't be issued until those things were satisfactorily addressed, but that's my assumption.
Yeah.
Sadly, we don't have a stormwater ordinance, and so there is no way to administratively review a stormwater management plan. Because we don't have a set of criteria for them to meet. The strategy that you've typically used when a project is large enough that you're concerned about stormwater, which isn't very many of them, is you review a stormwater management plan, and you decide that engineer do a good enough job, and you're not trying to re-engineer it for them, but you at least see what is it that they're thinking about doing. In this case, you don't have one yet, but they're clearly intending, or maybe have even started on one, it sounds like. I haven't seen any of it, but I'm sure we could.
We're through we're through the process of, it's fully designed right now, and it can definitely be reviewed by you folks. You know, the way the stormwater works on that site is that the pond can only go in one spot. It has to go on the bottom of the site. You know, all of the parking lots, the parking lot area and everything would, you know, run into receptors, which would go down to the pond and get filtrated, and then it would discharge out into, you know, the ditch area down on the corner.
Okay.
It's pretty simple, but the grading's already done for the most part on the site. We're not gonna be doing a lot of grading, but, you know, there is grading that we'll have to do to make sure that the water goes to that area.
So one of the ways we've dealt with that in the past, especially on a project of this size where they're disturbing more than an acre and they have requirements that are not ours but are the state's, is we just say in the conditional use permit that a condition of the permit is that they get an NPDES permit successfully through the state, which it sounds like they're already doing.
Yeah, we're designed within the state requirements. Our engineers work on a lot of projects like this, so. One of the, I guess one of the bigger concerns of kind of the water management is just where we put the driveway in and making sure that the culvert's big enough to take that water that's coming down that. And that's probably the most focus we put on. You know, having issues is to make sure that that's not going to be an issue.
This is similar to the traffic issue in that the county engineer really has a role in giving you good advice on this, and there's no official role for the county engineer to come talk to you. But Robbie's been in here and he's talked about this project, and I kind of agree. It didn't seem like he had any concerns about it. But if you wanted to hear from him in a more official capacity, you could also add that as a condition, that you want Robbie to say that their ideas for traffic management and for stormwater management work for his roads that they're adjacent to.
I mean, I think considering the concerns we've heard from the community, that seems.
Yeah, I mean, if in my, and I understand that you're gonna, obviously, you're doing a delineation once, you gotta wait for stuff to come up out of the ground. I know you have to do stormwater because of the size of the impact on the land. The one, I mean, the biggest, of the concerns that I hear, the one that I don't feel like good about is the traffic. Is that, I mean, so I live on the Gunflint Trail 3 blocks down from where this is at. So I'm in Creechville, like, there's the not in my backyard thing, and I am like YIMBY, like I'm like yes in my backyard. Like it really, in a sense of like, I mean, the Hamilton housing, they put up, I mean, it's not my land. They bought a piece of land and that's what I see out my living room window. But I live in town, and I understand why they did it where they did it, and it solved the housing for one person. I think that's great. I think this is gonna solve housing for a lot of, hopefully, families. But because of the amount, and I know, like, it's, I know truckers coming down, there's plenty of times where I'm trying to come down, again, not 5th, but coming down 4th, and in the wintertime, it's like, I just hope nobody is coming if it's slippery and I've got a trailer with an excavator on the back, because it's like, I got my plow down, I'm trying to stop, I'm going 2 miles an hour approaching that for a whole block, and it's like, that's just, you hope that nobody's coming. And Dave's house is built about 8 feet from the curb, so you have no way until you're in the road.
Wait till his pickup's parked there, you can't see it all.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So it's a legitimate, I mean, I'm not opposed to the development side of it.
Yep.
I'm not, because I know that you have to follow rules. But I am super, I'm just nervous about the traffic. I know plenty of times where I'm coming uphill where somebody can see me for a quarter mile and they pull up out of Fifth Avenue West between the horse park and the dog park, and, you know, or they think it's still the old Gunflint Trail and just blaze right through that stop sign. I mean, dozens of times this summer, you know, and that's just with me, like, not even like, you know, so I assume, and I, you know, not driving a logging truck coming downhill. And also the speeds at which people, I mean, it's 40. We've talked about engine braking here, right?
Yeah, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. And we can't, like, I mean, enforcement, like, they won't enforce, right? They, you know, they say the letters that my neighbors send to the law enforcement about, like, it's not everybody. It's not necessarily engine braking, but it's like the ones that, like, you know, are super loud. They're just like, we don't have the capacity to, we don't have any capacity to enforce it. We know who it is, we'll try and talk to them. But it's like, so I don't put a lot of trust in the fact that we can put flashing signs up to get people to slow down. If somebody's coming in hot with their boat and their RV or whatever from up the trail, they think they're gonna go, whatever, they got a downhill, they're gonna go 60 miles an hour around that curve, and then it's a sweet straight stretch for another quarter, half mile. They're gonna go, I mean, we've lost dogs on that road, you know, I mean, like, that's scary. And it's scary, again, proximity, right? We're halfway down that straight stretch where people should be able to see things happening. That is right there. So I don't know, I mean, I'd love to talk to the county engineer. I don't know what the solution is because of that location. So that's my only, I mean, I want, you know, it's gonna change the side of the hill, it's gonna change, but it's also gonna change housing. But I don't know what to do about traffic. It's the big, I'm not worried about wetlands. I'm not worried about the trees, to be honest with you, because if you guys planted new trees, and the Gunflint came through, it turned all that to wetland. Every tree on the north side of the Gunflint Trail is dead and dying, and it is terrible. Not everyone, but a lot, because of what happened with when the Gunflint got put through. It just dammed up all the water. It's why Anna couldn't buy the school land.
School property.
It's all wet, right? And it's wet because of that. So, but there's solutions to that. There's mechanisms, there's bigger agencies than us sitting here at this table that deal with that every single day. So I trust that you guys will have to follow, because you have to, and if you don't, then you're gonna be in bigger trouble than with us and, you know, the people here that are opposed to it. But I don't know what to do about traffic. That's my, you know, I don't know. That's my biggest holdup right now.
So a couple things. I don't know if I can totally alleviate your concerns, which are completely reasonable. I can say that we've had this conversation on every building we've done, and to date, not a single building that we've had equals accidents. Drivers don't always equal accidents. You know, a lot of the things you're saying happen already even before this exists, right? I can tell you that I've been through the psychology myself. One of the reasons you guys care is because you're good people. You don't want people to get hurt. It's why it's human psychology. And I remember going through it. The first house that I ever owned, I bought for $160,000. I had to share a wall with someone. I was so pumped to do it. I was just fresh out of school. And within 1 year, I heard an apartment building's going up across the street. And I had the exact same reaction that most people have, and some of the people in this community are having. Traffic's going to be terrible. There's going to be safety concerns, lighting concerns, everything. I learned doing that I never noticed a car coming in and out. Now, I'm not saying that cars don't come in and out, but we recently had a project that we were discussing in Hermantown, and traffic was a big concern. They did a traffic study, and we have 147 units up by the school in Hermantown. There's one way in and one way out, and I literally went out there for an entire day and sat there by that exit. And I never saw more than a 4-car pileup on the, pileup's the wrong word. 4 cars lined in a row at that light. Safely, not running into each other. Uninjured. 4 cars at that light. And the reason is what we've learned as as apartment managers is that, people don't just pile out of the building at 7 a.m. and shoot down the road. Another thing is just because it's an apartment doesn't mean that people speed, right? That's, every individual drives their own way. For traffic management, that's a partnership with the city, it's a partnership with the community. Do we need to put a roundabout there? Do we need to put more stoplights there? How do we do that kind of thing? And obviously, we're willing to do whatever we can. But the reality on the ground when you get there is some people don't go to work, they work from home. Some of our young professionals go to work at 7 in the morning. Some are bartenders that go at 11. Some of our 55 plus stay at the house all day. And so when you actually see it happen during the, we feel less sensitive to it because we've never yet gone, here's a building, all of a sudden that corner had 10 accidents a month. It just hasn't happened. But it is a totally reasonable concern because, like I said, you're human and you care about people. The impact on the ground, I think, will be felt a lot less. And as much as we can tell you that we can control the driving habits of our tenants or anybody in the community, that part we can't.
Yeah.
But the traffic management, we are more than happy to partner in any way we can.
And I think that's the kicker for me with the site, right? Because again, I don't actually think that the school lots, I think that should be set for single family, honestly, and build out the whole works, and we'd have another 100 houses. That would be great.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't see that. It's the curve, it's the hill, it's the speed, right? It's not even. Yeah, I don't think that everybody that's gonna live there drives like an idiot, right? That's not the point. But the point is just you look right, look left, look right again. I mean, it's a tough intersection, I think. I mean,
It's a tough intersection here locally.
Yeah.
When engineers design things, I've got one now, thanks. They have standards that they use to determine which tool to use to solve a problem. And the traffic counts on our roads don't really reach the bottom of their table very often. We don't have the amount of traffic that accesses really any of the tools that engineers use to do traffic control. And you can just look on Highway 61 for a very recent example of conversations about traffic and trucks and parking and a lot more interactions than are going to happen in this intersection. And I bring that up as an example to say there's not going to be a solution here that makes everybody feel comfortable. It's not going to happen. Engineers probably won't suggest one, and that we've already had Robbie say that. But more importantly, we just have our own ideas about what safe means and feels like, and they're site-specific, and I don't think somebody's going to be able to design something that's going to make everybody feel comfortable here.
Well, I'd like to propose that, maybe for the commissioners to maybe think about this in that spirit of looking at this and you don't have a problem until you have a problem, kind of but rather than just automatically or have some mechanism that gives you guys the complete and total flexibility and control to add the second building, I'd like to propose that the city council gets to review that before you break ground on the second building, right, on your phase 2. And maybe it doesn't have to go through here, or maybe it does, but I think that an elected body of some variety should have a chance to review what's happening before we commit to another.
And that was really unclear to me too, based on the application, whether that was a good assumption to make sure we're all clear on. And based on what they're talking about today, I would hope they're also comfortable with that, and that if there were problems, that they'd want to be figuring them out with you before they double down on the investment.
It wasn't
if everything's
clear to me
great,
if we were approving 2 buildings or 1.
Yeah.
So.
And if everything's great, then that next conversation is easy.
Okay.
Short.
Yeah, I think, just thinking through it as everyone's talking and kind of going up to the site and driving around it and things like that, I think one benefit that the building will add to that area is as soon as you see that amount of density, like your alarm automatically goes off that you're coming into an area that has more traffic or more people in, so you're just paying more attention at that point, I think. It's like, driving through the county and all of a sudden you come to a town, it's like, whoa, I'm in town, I gotta slow down, that area, that corner, to me, I feel like it will change, and it'll change people's alertness when they come around that corner coming down that hill.
It might change part of your alertness coming down the hill, but going up the hill, especially in the winter, a lot of times you have one shot to get up that hill with a big truck. And there's too many times it takes one vehicle to pull out and hesitate, don't have your car in four-wheel drive, can't get going, you're not gonna make it. And now you gotta try and back down the hill, get law enforcement out, the county's gotta come out to be able to try and get it sanded good enough. That's where and the speed limit's actually been raised on the Gunflint recently. Even along right through Headstrom's, that was unlegitimate on a lot of the speed limits on the Gunflint. They raised it to 50 miles an hour going through a terrible spot, should have never been raised. It was fine at 40.
Yep.
I speak to that. I wish all of you would have been at the courthouse. That was this last winter, because there's a Gunflint redesign.
Yep.
I was one of two people that showed up to give input on truck traffic and extra lanes, so I urge you to go look that up. What is the plan? And if that project does happen at some place later,
This is a good meeting too.
hopefully it can be incorporated that, hey, there's an apartment building there, because I was once saying, hey, there might be an apartment building here someday.
Yeah. There we go.
So, so it has been talked about, the county engineer is aware of it, people are concerned, they're looking at options, and guess what? We don't get to set, I'm on the highway advisory committee, I've learned so much.
Okay.
We don't get to set speed limits. What? The state of Minnesota does.
Oh.
Stupid law.
That's why they raised them all up
Yeah.
Stupid
of
law.
all places.
What?
Of course, you gotta go deeper. Nobody cares what it is anyway.
Or
I started writing down what a motion might include, but do you have?
I don't have a good motion.
Okay.
I have the conditions on it, that would be helpful, I was trying to track.
Do you
Taking
have-
minutes, yeah.
What do you got so far, Jason?
So far, I've got that, and I just want to echo what these two have said. I think everything has been really reasonable. Like the concerns are legitimate, and so we want to address them. One is that the county engineer reviews and approves formally a traffic plan and techniques to make it as safe as possible. And like others have said, it's not going to be perfect, and not everybody's going to be comfortable with it. But that's a condition that you said, that you have Robbie and companies sign off on. This is what we recommend for this, given the traffic counts, et cetera. Oh, by the way, these are both the land use, issuance of the land use is subject to these things. The land use permit, excuse me. The other thing that Commissioner Peters said was the council gets to review and give a final yay, nay on any second phase that would be requested. So this is a tentative approval, the site plan and scheme, but then city council gets to review and stamp one way or the other. Those are the two things that I heard that want to be incorporated as conditions.
City council or this group?
City, Peter said city council.
But that would be,
Yeah,
that
it
would
goes
be,
to council. Like, we just make the recommendation, but the council actually approves it.
Yeah, we don't.
Right, because you're going to ultimately, the
On the-
council's
Save a
ultimately
meeting.
going to see it.
on the second one though, that's not like, not at the meeting next week that the city council would say, okay, we're gonna say two. We're
Oh.
saying like after, like.
Yeah, what we're saying is if they exercise an option to do with the HRA to do a second phase before they would get any approval to before you would issue a land use permit,
Yeah,
council would have to approve the project.
yeah. Yep.
Mike, do you have any take on that? If it makes sense to, for this body, whatever that looks like whenever this phase two is proposed? Or
I think it makes a lot
or-
more sense to just run it through the normal conditional use permit process.
Again.
I think there'll be plenty of time to do that as well, because they'll have made their decision on whether they want to move on with phase two probably before May of the year they're going to do it, and they can come in January and have time to talk about it.
Great.
If you go to a council meeting and skip this process, then we don't have any structure as to what that conversation is supposed to be about, or what are the findings they're supposed to make. Whereas in this case, we still do have a legal set of questions of the things that they're to be concerned about. You could make either way work. You could try to create some structure now of what you want them to think about, or you could just leave it as a yay or nay light switch. But even then, the developers are taking the risk that they're going to show up at a council meeting with no idea what the council wants to talk about, with no idea how the council gets to make the decision,
Right.
and it's either up or down. At least this case, they know what the conversation looks like.
Right. Okay. So we'll expect it.
So
For the second.
an additional conditional use.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that makes sense.
I'm curious, does that change your project plans drastically? Will you say, no, this isn't going to work for us then?
I think the upside to the project from a business standpoint was having the option. What's more important to us than that is that the community's comfortable doing it. And so as community leaders, if you find that that's the most comfortable spot, we'll be happy to discuss the next one. It'll only get put in if there's a need. It'll only get put in if it's viable. And, we'll only exercise that option if the community wants it. So if that's what makes this council comfortable, we're comfortable with it. Commission, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
To me, it does, and maybe things would be a little different if we hadn't ceded so much of the city authority to the county regarding the HRA, right? But it does change things for the city, right? So, I mean,
Yes. Right.
I represent the city first.
Right.
By the way, the HRA does too.
Right. Sort of.
Well, how is this,
Sort
how
of.
is
Sort
the
of.
septic system gonna handle that, your treatment plant? Is it gonna be overworked now?
No.
Is that gonna
Oh,
need to
we're
be updated?
nowhere.
Nowhere near.
It's already
We're
being-
nowhere near
nowhere
capacity.
Water supply in there.
What-
You need
We
a
could do
well,
the
a
whole
well.
county.
What about, the water supply to be able to fight a fire if
Yeah,
there's
why
a
not have
fire
a
up
well
that way
up
going
there
up
so
the
they
hill?
could have plenty of water if they do have a fire?
Yep. Well, folks, moving on. We have almost a motion. I think bringing the motion together is to say that we are comfortable approving this as long as we can have it back for the second phase. And that we would like to see is it Robbie with the Highway Department? See that back here as well.
What do you think of Anton?
Yeah, are you agreed?
I mean, do we want to also put in there the fact that, I mean, just for our own sake, to have it come back with, I mean, I wrote down, one of the first things we were talking about was, stormwater, just like making sure that stuff is taken care of. So the things I have is the stormwater, your traffic in one building. Basically, that's what the conditions are for right now, and what we want to see.
Right.
That's
Well,
part of the stormwater.
That's part of the
I
stormwater.
felt like that was sort of connected.
So, yeah.
So that we would, is that right, that we would see this back here? If we grant the conditional use permit, even with these, would this come back before us before? No.
Wouldn't have to. I mean, it's your option to talk about that. I think it's perfectly reasonable to not come back here with those, because they're not things that you really get to dig into the details of and have a lot of informed comment about, because they're being designed by professionals to a set of standards that already exist that we don't really have any influence over.
Would it go to the council?
I think if you want people to see it, that's fine. Like, do you want these things to be prepared and approved by their respective boards, of which we're not one, before a land use permit is done, and would you want to have an ability to review it as a council? Yeah, that's fine, but I don't think we need a public hearing and a giant meeting, and you're not going to spend a lot of time discussing them. It's more of these are pieces you want to know exist before the next step moves on.
That's the bigger thing, I think.
Yeah.
And it can be, like we said, thank you, by the way, Commissioner, I forgot about the stormwater thing that was mentioned earlier. This can be subject, like the city has to receive these before issuing a land use permit.
Yeah.
So that you rely on the city's staff and their consultants or whoever they hire to say, yep, this is according to spec.
Right.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily need to see it back here, but it needs to come back.
It needs to be done, right.
That works.
I think yeah, again, that's my, those are the 3 points for me that I think that it would be nice to see. I mean, because I do, yeah, I'm not trying to be held up on traffic, just like I hate getting hung up on parking. Like, it's just like it kills so many things. I'm not trying to be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
But I want it to be successful for everybody. For you guys, you guys are taking a risk. I understand that. We're also taking a risk. And I don't want the people that are living there to necessarily have to take a greater risk every day when they're trying to come and, go. So, and I agree, yeah, in a small town, you can't pull up engineered traffic counts that even register, but it's still it's a known issue. And I don't, we know a roundabout's not gonna work, we know a stoplight's not gonna work. So I would like to see what is the proposed plan, short of just the stop sign that already exists on Fifth.
Yeah.
So,
Tunnel.
Overpass.
Tunnel.
All sorts of ideas. Did that amount to something you can run with?
Those conditions are easy enough to write up, yeah. Any other findings you guys want to go ahead and mention?
So, well, I think that first one is the use conform to the land use or comprehensive plan of the city. I think obviously one of the biggest ones that jumps out to me was the needs and desires of residents. Obviously, we've heard that over and again, so I would definitely put that in there for that category. Is it compatible with the existing neighborhood? Clearly. That was our intent when we switched it over to R1, when we made the sale, all of that. And where it's located, we can see that there's really only one side where it's, I couldn't foresee it impeding anything in terms of further development, because we have as we've talked about, the Gunflint right there. There's really not anything to be stopped by that. And let's see there, what's our financial location, character, yeah, and that is what we wanted to have happen in that area again. So if that'll work for you. We agreed. All right.
Motion, I think.
We have a motion. Well, we sort of have a motion. We kind of all gathered in on it. So I would say that we would approve.
Who sort of made the motion?
Yeah.
I sort of made the motion. Good.
You made the motion?
I've made the
Do you
motion.
have a second?
Can I have a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Ben. Awesome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Seeing there's no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all your comments.
Thanks.